I too would rather them get it right. I think fans were just a little, they're a little frustrated with that.
Because last night,
crew.
Yeah, I mean, last night really was. That was 33 minutes of real time. So, like, last night was excessive.
And then at the end, it was fine for me up until after the inbounds pass to Ayton. And then they couldn't figure out who was supposed to be on the court. There was like 0.7 seconds left. I'm like, guys, the game's over. Like, figure out who was on the court. It's not that hard. Monty Williams just running up like he's not supposed to be in. It's a little bit of chaos. So the Eastern Conference Finals between the Bucks and the Hawks kick off tonight. Both teams are looking to get back to the NBA Finals after decades of postseason frustration. The Bucks last reached the finals in 1974, and the Hawks haven't been back since 1961 when they were still playing in St. Louis. So a lot of history on the line for these two organizations. It's been quite the journey back.
There was a series, the series I bet money on in early was I picked the Suns over Denver. There was a FanDuel. There was a very good line on that. I thought that was the best bet of the playoffs. I look at this series, and I can't talk myself into Atlanta keeping it close. Now, Atlanta will shoot their way to a win, I'm sure, at some point. This feels so lopsided. I think Milwaukee is a bigger team, more experienced team. They're a more physical team. They're a better defensive team. I don't know if Atlanta's got an answer for Giannis. It feels like such a mismatch to me.
It does, and yet the Hawks just continue to find ways. So I'm hoping it's a long series. We've been really blessed with some amazing series in this postseason.
Yeah.
And the Bucks are favored by 8.5 in Game 1 tonight, which is a lot of points. But that's what Fox Bet has them at right now. Trae Young is averaging 29.1 points, 2.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists per game in this postseason. It's been a really incredible postseason run for Trae Young. Like, he has arrived nationally.
Listen, the NBA, you and I talked about this. I love LeBron, but there is a LeBron fatigue, I feel sometimes. The NBA playoffs isn't about as much stars as everybody think. It's about stories. The Knicks were a good story. The Suns are a great story. I don't care about Phoenix's market size. I am emotionally into the Suns.
Yeah.
So everybody, the ratings will go down if LeBron's gone. I can only speak for myself. The stories that Simmons imploding, you can't take your eyes off it. It's the NBA's car wreck. You can't stop watching it.
Well, this was the question all along, right? Because fans are always yelling for parity, and are you guys actually going to watch if there is parity in the playoffs? And fans are watching, and it's great. Well, we've also had really competitive series. I think on top of, maybe a little bit of fatigue in the postseason, there's also this, like, the first round is like sweeps and gentlemen's sweeps. Like, we've had game 7s in the first round. That makes a big difference when you have a sense of urgency and you actually get to play out the full series and see and learn about each team to their full capacity. And you're getting, a lot of bench play as well. So players that you don't normally see stepping up are getting significant
Cameron
playing time.
Payne.
Unbelievable game for him last night. Unbelievable performance. So the Pistons won the NBA draft lottery.
They did.
And will have the first overall pick this year. This is the third time in franchise history that they've had the first overall pick, and the first time since 1970. So Ben Wallace was a little bit of good luck for them last night. The Rockets secured the second pick in the draft, followed by the Cavs and the Raptors rounding out the top 4. Then you have the Magic, Thunder, Warriors, and then at 8, Magic, Kings, Pelicans, Hornets, 12, the Spurs, 13 the Pacers, and 14 the Warriors is the draft order.
So people know this more than I do, but Cade Cunningham, Oklahoma State, probably going to go 1. Evan Mobley, USC's way up there.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs, Gonzaga. Jalen Green in the G League.
Yes.
It is. I was screwing around last night watching this, looking at mock drafts. Again, no expert here, but there was a kid that played for Oregon, Duarte, I think his name is, great shooter. They had him going like 23rd, and I was like, I watched him. Like, he's an NBA player, catch and shoot, off the dribble. It looks like, again, I'm no expert here, but you know how we banged on last year's draft? It was like 3 dudes and a bunch of question marks. There's a lot of really interesting college players that I think are going to be nice NBA players.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep draft. The Cade Cunningham thing is interesting because the Pistons took a point guard, the 7th overall pick, Killian Hayes, last year. So are they going to double up on that again just because of his talents? Like, it might not necessarily be the best fit.
Well, you go Evan Mobley, USC. We saw him in the tournament. He got significantly better over the course of the season. So you could probably, they'll know what they're doing. But, I mean, generally speaking, you wouldn't go point guard to point guard. Right. So
now the Warriors could also make a trade, too, since they have 2 picks in the top 14.
Yeah, don't they have the 7 and 14?
They have the 7 and 14 pick,
yeah, see, that's... I think that is a really, really viable opportunity to give 2 away for 1. That's really interesting. Warriors are in a really interesting space. Yeah.
Speaking of the Warriors, Steve Kerr had a front row seat to Kevin Durant's success in Golden State, but he also saw all the effects of the criticism KD was dealing with. In Matt Sullivan's book, Can't Knock the Hustle, Kerr said that in the 2018-19 season in particular, Durant was dealing with a lot of outside pressure. He said, I could see the strain on his face every day. He was staring into that phone all the time. The way that you handle backlash kind of determines your fate. So on the court, he couldn't have handled backlash any better. But in this modern life, it's easy to get caught up in all the other stuff. And I thought that put a lot of stress on Kevin, just feeling that constant criticism.
Well, I think people do stare at their phones all day. I've talked about this. Generationally, I can watch games not with a phone on and just put it down and watch the game and have a Corona and just watch stuff. But I didn't grow up with a phone. Right. So for a 30-year-old, that would be insane. You're tweeting the whole time. And I look at some young sportscasters and I think, can't you just watch a game? But I didn't grow up with it. So when I went to dinner the other night in a real bougie Hollywood place, right? And everybody there's young and, it's like phone time. And I'm just like, can't you guys just eat? But
I don't like to be on the phone at dinner in general. But I am somebody who I kind of was like in that last space of the generation that didn't grow up with cell phones.
Right.
And I got my first cell phone when I was 16 and you had to pay per text.
Yeah.
So it was like I didn't grow up on the phone, communicating constantly. And so I enjoy kind of like, going away for the weekend and just not being on social media.
Right.
But I understand and can relate, obviously, to what he's talking about. And when you're at the level that KD is, the amount of criticism that he's getting.
Brutal.
It's why, like, everybody can't handle it the same way. And everyone has, like, sometimes he fires back, and I totally get that. It's just these type of stories are why I try to somewhat overemphasize that these are human beings.
Right.
And most people couldn't deal with 1% of the backlash and constant criticism that someone like KD, who is at the top of his game, gets.
Yeah.
And it does. It has an effect on your mental health if you don't find balance.
No question. I got kids. I see it every day. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line